The conference is now being recorded.
The resource is currently being prepared by Mining Plus under the direction of AMEC and is due to be completed around the end of this month or early May. The PEA is scheduled to be completed by AMEC in late July. When Pan American let it be known publicly early this year that they were not going to be able to meet the April 13th deadline, we immediately began to receive calls from other mining companies who let us know that if 100% of La Preciosa was ever available, they would be seriously interested. Now, 2 of these companies have signed confidentiality agreements with standstill clauses. Both of them have now been granted access to our data room, and we are expecting the return of another CA shortly, and a 4th company has just expressed its initial interest. We at Orko were very surprised by the severity of the sell-off on Thursday and Monday, but we're glad to see somewhat of a rebound yesterday. Our view is the project is worth considerably more than the Pan American PEA value of $315 million US, net present value discounted at 5%, and we consider it to be very conservative. But even if you use that number, Orko's value equates to $225 a share, so we should be trading much higher than we are today. We believe that good news is coming technically, and that the ability to control 100% of the La Preciosa deposit will pay off for shareholders in the near future. Before I open the lines of questions, just a sidebar. Pan American has not sold a single share of their 4 million shares. If you wish to ask a question, please press 0 and then 1 on your phone, and the operator will take your questions in order. Please push the pound key if you wish to withdraw your question. I now ask the operator to open it up for questions.
Okay, perfect. So our first question.
Gary, my question is, one of the criticisms of the PEA and Pan American's calculations was that the drill holes were 100 meters apart. How much drilling would it take to put all the holes 50 meters apart? How long would that take? How much money? And is it feasible to have that done by July for the next PEA?
Hi, Paul. It's Gary. I'm going to let George Cavey answer that question. George?
Yeah, thank you. It's a twofold answer to the question. Firstly, the drill holes were spaced initially by Orko at 100-meter spacing. Pan American has done some subsequent drilling in certain areas where they have done infilling to 50 meters, some areas to 25 meters. To determine exactly how much more drilling is required is a component of the PEA that AMEC has been mandated to do. They have to take the data that has been provided by Pan American and determine what additional drilling would be required to take inferred ounces, move them into indicated into measured. So at this point in time, we cannot estimate how much drilling it would take and when until we receive the results of AMEC's detailed analysis and presentation of recommendations in their PEA delivered in late July.
Okay, our next question.
Yes, sir. Just want to start out with a fact, and that is that the junior mining sector has been and is being crushed, even when in the face of good news. The question is, and another fact is, Pan American CEO's departing quote was very damaging, and I think that resulted in the extreme sell-off that we saw. And I want to know if Orko was aware of the wording of Pan Am's statement, and if not, why not?
We were aware of the wording. We completely underestimated the severity of the reaction to that. That's the best answer to your question. Having said that, Pan Am gave the reason that it didn't meet their economic criteria. Without getting into details, I would suggest there's other reasons why they gave the project back.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, but maybe in Orko's statement they could have opined a little bit on that as well to soften the blow.
Point taken.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question is from
Gary, thanks so much for having this conference call. Just wondering, what's the status of the joint venture that Pan Am had with Canasil on the Carina property that Pan Am supposedly put into La Preciosa?
As far as I know, the joint venture is still in place with Pan Am. It really doesn't affect us right now where we are unless there was a big discovery made there, and we would have potentially the ability to get involved. But as far as I know, the joint venture right now is still in place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next question is.
Hi, Gary, Mike, and George. Thanks very much for having this conference call. I think it's going to help a lot. Just a comment to make. I, for one, I just want to congratulate you on being prudent and intuitive in hiring AMAC quite a while ago. The reason I say that is simply because if this was handed back over to you, the first question would ask, what would you do now? So I think you've got a pretty good backup plan. So I'm going to go. I got a couple questions. First, to what extent is the Mindfinder deal with Pan American? Does that give you any sort of scope in terms of valuation going forward? And the second question would be, I know we talk a lot about La Preciosa, but you have a large land package there. Just want to get some comments and color around what potential other sites you have there within that package. Have you done any test drilling? And perhaps you can comment on that. Thank you.
I'll answer the first part of the question, let George answer the second. The Mindfinders deal, certainly we can use it as a base for valuation. I mean, Mindfinders, without getting into all the technical data, just the basic data, Mindfinders produces 5 million ounces a year. Pan American paid $1.2 billion net for that if you take off the cash value, or the cash that Mindfinders had in the till. So $1.2 billion for 5 million ounces of production, and even Pan American's PEA has us at 7.2 or 7.3 million ounces, and
George Gravy here. I'm going to answer the second part on the exploration potential. I think you have to look at two components to exploration. There's exploration of the large 32,000 hectare project. We never got to Pan American never got to either. Those always will be exploration targets that need to be tested sometime in the future. However, at this stage of where we are, where is the most value we get from the company moving forward? And I believe there's a lot of value very close to the existing deposit that we can immediately start focusing on. And with AMEC's guidance, some of the areas would be to the southeast where the deposit continues based on the Orko drilling that ended in 2009, which wasn't extended by Pan American. Further areas are including on the east side of the deposit, the known deposit. Now, all of the numbers that you've seen historically on resource estimates are based on drilling. It's called the drill indicated model. They use wireframes and all the computer technology that defines an actual resource boundaries, and those boundaries are determined by drilling. However, when the deposit gets very shallow, as it does to the east side of our deposit, and comes right to surface, there's been no drilling done out there, and so therefore all of that material, and it's very extensive, over a kilometer of length, has never been put into a resource base. And I can see that as a more immediate target for quickly getting ounces into the resource base, rather than spending a lot of money on the outside exploration. However, they do exist, and there's still a potential. But I think the most important value would probably be very close in.
Okay, our next question is.
Good morning, gentlemen. I was wondering how much cash do you guys have on hand to continue with the project?
Cash, this is Mike here. We have roughly $12.5 million in the bank, around $12 million, and there's another $3 million in warrants that could come in a way of stock options over the next 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Our next question.
Mr. Cope, thank you for having this call. I take it you've decided to put up the. Can you confirm that you've decided to put up the company for sale? And if so, are you going to hire an investment bank to advise you so that we can get the maximum value from all the bidders for this company?
Yeah, good question. I think our preferred exit strategy has always been to sell the deposit to a mining company. That's still our preferred exit strategy. As far as having advisors, we've had GMP and Bank of Montreal as our advisors for 3 years now. So we're in contact with both of their M&A departments and constantly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next question is...
Yeah, obviously the market didn't take the news release well. In my feeling as an investor, there's more upside now, obviously, because you own 100% of the deposit. And I guess my concerns are risk and also delays, obviously. So I guess my question would be sort of twofold. What do you see as the greatest risk short term to the project, as well as what's the timeline around potentially selling the deposit?
Greatest risk is and the only major risk I see is the price of silver. I think if silver went down to less than $12, this deposit would be potentially marginal and in trouble. But that's the only major risk I see. As far as the timeline for selling it, that's a tough question for us to answer. It's more in the hands of the major mining companies who are now interested.
Okay.
Bill, this is Mike here. Just to answer your question, we have the largest primary, one of the largest primary silver deposits in the world. Okay, and as a result of that, there'll be a lot of interested parties out there that would consider this as a fantastic add-on to their production life cycle. Okay, so having just received this project back from Pan American just last Thursday, we need to get our PEA in place, and over the next 2-3 months, I would assume that there'll be a lot more interested parties that would come to the table and start looking at this project as a 100% acquisition. So I think the next few months here is going to be very, very exciting and interesting for us.
And if I can add on to that, I would say that the two companies who have signed CAs, one in particular has been extremely aggressive in rushing to get up to speed. So again, to answer your questions, I can't give you a time frame. But there's no reason to think that it will be years. It won't be years. These guys are rushing to get up to speed. And in the case of the two who have signed CAs, both had experience with the project before we ever did the deal with Pan Am, and both loved it. So they're quite happy it's come back on the market, and we'll see where that goes.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your work.
Okay, our next question.
Hey, question for you. I noticed there was an insider marker of 750,000 shares of sold on the 5th. Can you comment on that? I guess where that would have maybe come from, or are you able to?
And a few people have asked that question. I don't know where it came from. All I can assure you is it didn't come from anybody in our office. Mm-hmm. From what somebody told me, that sometimes on this particular site it shows that an insider marker that sometimes gets changed back, that it was a mistake. But certainly nobody from this office has been buying or selling. We've been on a blackout for some time.
I see. Okay, great. I got one more question. I noticed, of course, after the day after the event here, RBC or BMO and Clarus come out with the sell rating. Do you have any view on the reasoning for the big downgrade? Because I know after talking with you the last couple of days, it's you guys own 100%. You got the $12 million plus in the bank. Everything's looking good. So what's their exact reasoning for the big downgrade?
I wish I could answer that question. But what I can say is that all the analysts use is whatever information was out there, which is the old PEA. But even then, I mean, neither of these analysts or any of the three who put out these reports, not one of them called us to get any kind of information. They did it without contacting the company. I've had a conversation with one of them. He promises that as soon as the AMEX stuff comes out, he'll review it and go through it again. But I don't know what these guys think sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, our next question is from...
Hi. When you still had the JV with Pan American, was the $315 million NPV number for Orko's 45% share or for 100% share?
No, that was based on 100% ownership of the deposit.
Mm-hmm. So Orko's 45% share was worth 45% of that $315 million when you had the JV with Pan American?
No, because you got to remember that you have to factor in that Pan American had to put up all the capex. So we were actually in, I think, 55% net value of the deposit, even though we were at 45% because of the factoring in of the capex that Pan American had to pay 100% of.
See, I'm wondering if since you're no longer in the JV with Pan American, did Orko's value in the deposit basically double, or has it stayed the same since getting out of the JV?
In our opinion, it should have gone up, not a double. But because again, of that factoring in of now we would have to finance the capex. And by the way, just to throw in an added on the capex, we have had numerous offers. Mike and I have both been approached numerous times. If we were to put this deposit into production, there was all sorts of financing options, debt financing options, and so just want to throw that out there that if it comes down to the fact that nobody was interested, we would put this thing forward, and we wouldn't have any problem finding financing.
Mm-hmm. At this stage, on your way to becoming the deposit becoming a producing mine, what does the sector typically pay for per ounce for silver in the ground at the stage you're in right now? What have takeovers been done at in the past for other companies?
This is Mike here. Traditionally, the numbers in the ground per ounce of silver, you can value them anywhere from $1.50 per ounce, depending on the category of the ounces, anywhere from $1.50 to $4.50, $5 per ounce in the ground. As far as the joint venture with Pan American, in the event that they would have carried the deal forward, put the mine into production, our share would have been 3.2 million ounces, roughly based on the 7 million ounces, which is what they were projecting. The valuation on that would have been in the range of a company like Endeavor or First Majestic's currently producing 3.5 million ounces. So, all right, so, the valuation can vary depending on your ounces, $1.50 to $7.
Mm-hmm. Lastly, what is the $64 million management fee number that was in the PEA? What does that include, or is that something that is not part of the ongoing up?
I'll let George answer that. He will be able to be the right guy to answer that.
The operator fee.
Yeah, Gary,
that's an operator's fee for being the operator of the deposit. Of course, now that we own 100%, that would immediately come off to the detriment of the PEA. So we had problems with that. That was one of the arguments that shouldn't have been in there. But it was.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, our next question is...
in fact, it's a convenient time to come in because we've just been touching on valuation, and my question relates to valuation in the new world where you have 100%. And I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about, first of all, the sensitivities, because as I understand it, PAS's PEA was done off a $25 silver price, and also a 5% discount rate. So now that you have 100%, using their PEA and their mining assumption and a 5% discount rate, I suppose you would not disagree with the company being worth, or the deposit being worth $315 million, although you may say there are then some costs that have got to be netted against that. But what I'm also interested to understand is, as one is a little more optimistic perhaps on the silver price, what is the sensitivity, and as the deposit size goes from their very prudent PEA back to the levels you believe are appropriate, what is the impact on value?
Well, that's a good question, and this project has an incredible sensitivity to the silver price. And to give you an example, and you were right, Pan American's PEA based it on $25 silver and $1,200 gold. If you use current pricing of gold and silver, the net present value goes from $315 million to $922 million. Just to give you an example of what that does. And the IRR, which was 24.3% IRR in the Pan Am PEA, goes to 52.7 with a 1.9-year payback. So you can see, the silver, that was basing on silver I should have said that was at 38 when silver was at 38. But it's a dramatic increase for every dollar that silver goes up.
Perfect. Our next question.
Yes, Gary, just a quick question going back to the question on cash and the balance sheet. I believe the company has about $12 million in cash. I'm curious to know what milestones can be achieved with that amount of cash, and or the timeline. Can you get through this year or further? And then in the most recent press release, you talked about producing a full feasibility. Would that $12 million be enough to fund the full feasibility study? Thank you.
I'm going to let George answer that.
Right now, the mandate of the AMEC PEA is to produce a cost estimate to go forward and do a full feasibility study. They will then, as I said earlier, be looking at how much drilling is required to further advance this to a feasibility study. So at the moment, I can't give a concrete answer. I'm hoping that it's enough of what we have in the bank, but we don't know until AMEC finishes their PEA to know exactly what they're recommending going forward. At the moment, our requirements to finish the PEA are a total of $900,000, and a lot of that's already been paid. So, and that will get us through the end of the PEA.
Okay, so is it fair to say that the $12 million should get you through, say, the end of the year at a minimum?
Well, that'll again depend on the recommendations from AMEC and what they recommend us to do and the cost of what that's going to take. It should, but I don't want to promise it will, because maybe there's something that we're going to have to fund that's very expensive. Like maybe, I'll give you an example, if we had to go and do the land acquisition, surface rights, certainly we would need to bring in more money.
As of right now, the $12 million is unallocated working capital, so that should last us till the end of the year.
Okay, that's fine. And then if I remember correctly, maybe back in 2008 or 2009, the company had put into place a shareholders' rights plan. Is that still in effect?
Yes, it is.
Okay, our next question is for...
Hi, gentlemen. In terms of a net present value calculation, if you're using a $25 price for silver, can you guys give me on a per-share basis, a conservative NPV, a moderate NPV, and an aggressive NPV for your deposit?
Well, in answering that, do you want me to do it off the Pan American PEA?
Yes.
Okay, so they come up with a 315, and again, I reiterate that we think that's ultra conservative. Everything that we believe and think we're heading for is a big improvement on that, but we will see when the new PEA comes. But basing it on that one, I think you're looking at a base case, which and Pan American would tell you this, of about $2.20 a share that works out to. An aggressive case, maybe 250, and really aggressive, maybe 280.
Okay.
But again, we believe there's going to be large improvements to that PEA.
Right. Basically, the ounces, there's going to be a substantial improvement as far as number of ounces and various other factors. So, yeah.
Well, just things lead us to believe there's going to be improvements. I don't want to outline where they are or where they might be, but looking at all the factors, we believe there's going to be, substantial improvements.
I think, Norman, the way to answer your question is, the main reason that AMEC is redoing this PEA is that we want really satisfied with the Pan American numbers. And as a result of that, I think it would be prudent for us to wait till July and see what the new numbers are going to be that AMEC presents to us. And like Gary says, there should be an improvement there, and we're all hoping that will be improvements that naturally will go in our favor. So, I think there is a lot of upside here. Like George talked about some of the drilling that Pan American did, which didn't look at the deposit coming at the surface. There's a lot of upside that I think we can build into our next PEA. So, it's a matter of another 2.5 months where we end up with an independent report from a big engineering firm that will be in our benefit.
And would I be correct in assuming that the other companies that you guys have had discussions with, the confidentiality agreements, that basically they will wait until that document is complete in order to really be able to work out if there is some kind of an agreement, that they would wait to see that document to be completed?
Not necessarily. I can tell you again from the one company who's being extremely aggressive that they're already doing their own model. They've already sat down and met with AMEC, and they're gung ho forging ahead with running their own numbers. So that not necessarily do they have to see that.
Okay, our next question.
A quick question. I know the terms on the JV with Pan Am were that all negotiations on takeover pricing, etc., were basically going to be done at the board level, and shareholders would only be privy to a number once both boards agreed upon it. Then that would go public. The standstill agreements or the confidentiality agreements you have with the two mining companies currently, and perhaps upwards of 4, will that be, those types of terms be similar? In other words, would shareholders not know anything that's going on as far as potential bids that have been put forward until the boards of both of those particular companies agree upon it, or will things be more public than the Pan Am JV agreement allowed?
Thanks, Rick. No, we have signed the standstills with the first two companies, which means that they cannot go hostile with us.
Okay.
So it'll be very similar to the Pan Am. It'll have to be a friendly deal. Obviously, if we were to get an offer that we're not sure of, we would look to our advisors to give us the advice whether that should go to the shareholders or not.
Okay, so the standstill agreements obviously pertain to anyone that has signed it, and anybody else that hasn't signed it obviously isn't privileged to the level of data that those companies have.
Correct, and just like to add that, and it's a question we've been getting here in the last few days, is whether Pan Am is still under standstill, and they are still under standstill for 1 year.
Okay, our next question.
Thank you for taking my questions, gentlemen. A couple of quick questions. With the resource estimate that is coming out in the next 4 to 5 weeks, with the Pan American PEA diluting the resource and kind of ratcheting down the estimate, what exactly will be done to kind of address that in the resource estimate that's coming out, or can that be addressed?
It is being addressed in the sense that we are going back to the traditional method at a PEA stage of looking at undiluted resources as opposed to fully diluted. And that's what Pan American did. They took it to a mining stage a little prematurely for this level of knowledge of the deposit. And having said that, we don't really interfere with the independence of the consultants that are doing the actual resource estimate. So we've told them what we hope we can find out. We've also given them the old Pan American one, and so they know exactly what was there beforehand, and so they know whether they see areas that they can improve. How will that improve? I don't know. As I say, we don't have any control really about how they go about doing that, other than the fact that they do agree with us that there is some upside based on what they saw from the work that was done previously.
Okay, thanks, George, for that. And then kind of a follow-up to a comment that you made before with respect to waiting until after the PEA is released in July, or AMEC comes up with the new PEA as far as plans for drilling. Is there any possibility of you doing any drilling at all in terms of low-lying fruit areas before the PEA?
I don't think we'd want to do that right now, because firstly, if we started down that road, it may delay the PEA because those numbers would probably want to be part of it. That means we have to redo the mine models and everything. So I think it's best we just wait until after the PEA and then start afresh.
Okay, good enough. And then just a quick question. There was a number that was bantied about just a few minutes ago. It's approximately $900,000 to get through to the PEA stage with AMEC in July. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And part of that has been paid.
Yeah.
Part of that's been paid. Okay.
About half has been paid.
Okay, very good. And then one quick final question, Gary. You mentioned just a few minutes ago about land acquisition rights. Is there any kind of expiry date in terms of those rights needing to be exercised?
No, and we've known for some time, I would say probably at least 6 months, that one of the reasons we knew that Pan Am wasn't going to be able to complete the feasibility study was because they hadn't gone after the surface rights. And in Mexico, and especially La Preciosa, you're going to be dealing with private ranchers, but more importantly, we had to deal with two ejidos. And securing the land from an ejido was going to take longer than 6 months for sure. There's a process you must go through that takes longer. So we knew in advance that they weren't going to make it. And again, they gave it they gave the notice, 8 days or so before, or 13 days before, they were going to have to announce losing it anyway.
Right. Okay.
So to use the excuse they did and go back a few callers, I would just point out that there was other reasons.
Okay. And any, ballpark numbers on what approximately the cost would be for those land acquisition rights? Do you have any idea?
No.
Okay.
No, we don't.
Okay. All right. Very good. I appreciate that. Thanks very much.
Okay, our next question is...
just one question. I keep hearing the figures. I know accounting is fairly different across the board on how it's presented, but when we're talking the $11 to $12 per ounce, are we talking an all-in cost here, or how is that done?
You're talking about the production cost?
That's right. That were already presented.
That's a milling cost. Does not include G&A, which I believe was another $4 or $5.
Another $4 or $5. So actually, we're talking somewhere in the range of $15 to $16. So.
All in.
That's all in. Yeah.
But the cost on that was all in for $11.84 per ounce produced.
No. It's cash cost. That's cash cost. There was the G&A administration cost was another $4 or $5.
Mm-hmm.
So you're roughly 15 or 16.
Okay. Very good. Thanks very much.
Okay, our next question is from...
Gary, in a brief Friday interview you did with Al Corlin, you noted one company in particular was doing aggressive due diligence, and then you also noted two others besides them as well. Can you expand at all on that? And part two of my question is, can you expand on the data room that's been set up? as far as that whole process and how it relates to other parties taking a look moving towards an endgame buyout?
I can't comment too much on the parties who have signed CA. Certainly, I can't name them, and what I can say is that they are extremely interested. They are doing their due diligence quickly. As far as the data room, we've always had a data room, and I'll let George elaborate on that.
Ever since we started the joint venture, we've had a data room where we continually put all the information in it that we had. And it is current to the information we have today. But we know that Pan American has done some work, some additional work in the new year here. Up in as late as March, they were drilling some water wells. And so information such as that is certainly not in there. In addition, other information that's not in there is, like, for example, the PEA has engineering studies. It has all sorts of different aspects, geotechnical studies, everything that would make up that PEA. We get the summaries in the PEAs, but we don't have the full backup in the data room yet. And that's one of the things that Pan American has promised that they would give us as part of their exit, is that we would have everything that they had done today, all the background, all the details, all the support, all the technical studies that we don't have right now. We've just got summaries of them. So that's a deficiency in the data room, but it's being addressed, and that's something that Pan American's promised, that we would have everything to make it a complete data room.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next question is...
What are some comparables for other silver miners that have been acquired in the last few years in terms of how much they were acquired for per ounce in the ground? Valuation?
I don't have that at my fingertips, but I'd be glad to send you an email and give you some of that information. I can look it up.
And you have to be careful, too. There's different kinds of acquisitions in the silver space. There's ones that of acquisitions of producing assets, such as First Majestic's deal they just did. And then there's the, a few years back, 2006, the Palmarejo acquisition of a gold-silver deposit prior to production. So in our space, deposits this large are very rare. And so there isn't that many. More what you'll see is a production scenario takeover, like Mine Finders, for example. And even before that, the Navidad acquisition of Pan American. So there's not that many in the space.
Yeah, earlier in the call, the $1.50 per ounce to $4.50 per ounce valuation for a deposit at this stage of the project, is that for the entire resource, or does that only include the measured and indicated and above?
We only have indicated and inferred, and so it includes the entire resource.
Okay, so the 175 million resource is used for that, not the 124 million measured and indicated.
No, that's indicated only. We don't have any measured.
Right, okay. Lastly, on the exploration potential of the deposit, what is the exploration potential in management's opinion? Is there another 30 million ounces out there, say?
Oh, we'd like to think there's more ounces. I wouldn't put a number on it at this point in time, but as I said earlier, areas that we would attack fairly quickly would be on the east flank where it comes to surface, where there's no drilling been done. There's certainly to the southeast, there is certainly drilling there that we would have to, we think that can be done. And at depth there's drilling, and that has never been fully tested. So we have outside targets on top of that, but I think the more rapid growth is the stuff right next to the deposit that can be quickly put into a resource category with a little work.
On the exploration potential to find out what it is, how much capital would that take about, in your opinion?
Sorry?
How much capital would it take to do more drilling to find out the exploration potential if you wanted to find more ounces? Would that be, $15 million, $20 million, $10 million?
No, I don't think it'd be that much, but as I said earlier, we are going to wait for the results from the PEA. Pan American's recommendations are to move this to feasibility study, also tell us where there is the best opportunities for further advancement of more ounces. So I will wait to see their budget before I contemplate or comment on how much that will take. I can't imagine it'd be that much, but I just don't know at this point.
Great, thank you.
Okay, our next question.
Gary, I was just wondering,
are you allowed at this point to talk about what the buyout price and what was being discussed in the negotiation with Pan Am before they, went on the decision to buy Preciosa? I mean, were we correct in thinking that we can expect a $350 to $450 buyout, or were we off base?
I want to answer that question, Greg. We were never formally presented any offer. We had given Pan Am about a year ago where we thought we were worth the value of the deposit, and from that point on, we were never presented any formal offer as far as a number. I was expecting one. I was led to believe by Pan American that I was going to get one, and then there was a board meeting, and within a week, they turned the project back to us. So again, it goes to other reasons that you have to look at, but to answer your question, we were never ever presented with any formal offer.
Okay. I do feel the project is undervalued. We're in a tough market condition right now, and I do think eventually we're going to get a buyout. I'm just trying to get a feel for where that buyout price could be now.
Well, Greg, if you're asking my opinion, nothing has changed from where we thought we were when we talked to Pan Am. I don't want to say that figure, but we have a valuation that is much higher than that $315 million that you saw in Pan Am's PEA.
Right. A second question, I was just, with the increased resource number coming out, are we going to have additional water needs? The fact that Pan Am was drilling here right up to the end looking for more water. I know in Mexico, water is always such a critical part of any project. Is water something we're going to have to pay attention to?
No, let me back up. We don't know that the resource estimates coming out will be increased. We're obviously hoping it will be, but at this point in time, we have no idea if the new resource estimate will be a significantly higher or higher at all. We don't know that. We're hoping it is. We're optimistic, but at this point in time, we don't know. Water has never been a problem for drilling. What we're talking about is production water. When you go into production, you have to have a steady stream. We have been using trucking water right from day one for the 250 kilometers of drilling we've done so far has all been using water that we've been bringing in by truck from a nearby reservoir. But when you go into production scenario, which is what these water wells were doing, was drilling for in anticipation of a production scenario. So it's an entirely different reason why they're drilling it. And so you always have to worry about water, but the area where we are is a big aquifer that should be easily tapped, like other people have in the community for mining purposes.
And it's just if I can add on to that, Greg, that water certainly wasn't a problem in Pan Am's mind.
Yeah, before. I mean, I realized that I'd asked that question before. I'm just thinking that, if they were drilling, maybe they're thinking with a different model, for production, they might need a little more water or something. So. No, and all I can say on that is the fact that they were drilling right up until, a month before, just sort of puts a kind of a dent in the case that suddenly it didn't meet their economic criteria. I mean, but water is not going to be a problem. Great. No, thanks, guys.
Okay, our next question is
just a brief question. Are you going to provide us with the JV agreement with Pan American and other related agreements in order for us to revise it from a legal side? Thank you.
The current agreement with Pan American has been on CDAR, the System of Electronic Distribution, that we are required to file. I think it's in October of 2009 that it was posted there. So those sort of documents we do regularly put on CDAR, but we don't have another document in place right now, other than the confidentiality agreements, which we don't put on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next.
Hi, thank you, gentlemen, very much for hosting the call again. Much appreciated. I apologize in advance if you've touched on this already. I was off the line with the operator for about a minute, and when I came back on, part of the question was being answered. But I wanted to circle back to your discussion about cash on the balance sheet, the $12 million and change. Obviously, we're in a very difficult placement environment for the junior minor exploration group as a whole, and some investors might disagree, but well-managed companies with long life assets, such as yourselves, who are in a position to carry through this temporary lull in the space over the next 12 months might be much better suited and see their share prices rewarded than those that are forced to come to market now. I think I'm pretty clear that over the next couple of months you guys are at a pretty low cash burn rate given the activity around the data room and your discussions with several parties. Looking at beyond that, could you say with comfort that the $12 million that you're sitting on today would get you through your operating expenditures for, say, the next 9 to 12 months?
Yes, I think, we did answer that question. But barring any unforeseen, recommendation that would take a lot of money, we have plenty to get us through this year.
Great, thank you.
Okay, our next question is from...
Two questions, if I can, Gary. One, you've indicated you've got a number of potential buyers looking at the project. What can you do to attract others, for instance, major Chinese mining companies?
Good question. I think if anybody's watching, the news on the silver and gold sector, they now know that Pan Am's walked away. That's certainly a recent event, and as Mike said earlier, people are going to recognize that now, and we expect to hear from probably other interested parties. Apart from that, Mike and George travel around the globe and are meeting with people all the time. So word will get around very quickly, I'm sure, to all parts of the world that there's a world, well, I shouldn't say world-class, but a large primary silver deposit that's now available.
Okay.
Jim, this is Mike here. I think the opportunity that arises now with 100% of the project, there's a lot of companies like, we've been talking to that will come to the table now. And we get approached a lot in the past where we couldn't do anything because we were tied down to Pan American until last Thursday. So now a lot of things open up for us.
Okay, second question, if I could. We just hit $1.39. That must be because of the conference call. You used an INR firm in the past. Is this something you'd consider using now to promote the stock, or if not, what other things will you consider doing?
I think, Jim, this is Mike here. We've matured a lot over the last 3-4 years. I think going forward here, I think our whole game plan is going to be a bit different in a way of how we're going to promote this company. I think depending upon the companies that are currently reviewing the information on the company right now, we may be able to use a lot of that and find other alternatives to promote the company. So yeah, definitely we're looking at other things, and just going to be a little different than in the past. In the past, we were 3 years tied up with Pan American. There was nothing to talk about other than the event. Either they come in and take us out, or we get the project back. Now that we have a project back, things change a lot in a way how we promote the company.
And Jim, we have a number of IR consultants still working for Orko now. Okay. And of course, they'll be used.
Okay, our next question is from...
Just a comment, I guess. I mean, with the drilling that we're now going to be waiting till the summer to get going on, and from the description of some of the spacing, it almost seems like Pan American was never really 100% going after defining the largest resource that they could before preparing the preliminary economic assessment in the first place. But my question really relates to, given the way that they walked away, I recall a comment about an $8 million payment that may be due to them. Is that off the table because of the way that things dissolved?
Yeah, there in the joint venture agreement, there was a one scenario that $8 million would have come into play, and that was once they delivered a feasibility study, if that feasibility study showed that Orko's portion was a positive go and Pan American's portion was a negative go, they had the option to return the property to us, and we would have paid them $8 million. But that scenario has obviously gone away with them not being able to deliver feasibility.
Perfect, makes sense. And one other quick question: is the call going to be available on playback somewhere?
Melissa's nodding and saying yes, it will be.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. Our next question is from Eric Rowland. He's a private investor. Please go ahead, Eric.
Hi. Thank you. Does PAA's acquisition of Mindfinder and their ability to digest it, because I noticed PAA's stock has dropped about $5 in the last few weeks. Has that got anything to do with them walking away from our project here, Orko?
You'd have to ask Pan American that question, but if you ask me my opinion, I would say it had a lot to do with it. They diluted 30%. 30% of their stock went to Mindfinder's shareholders, so it was a big deal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there are no other questions at this time.
Okay, thanks everybody for calling in, and we appreciate the interest.